But I just like to be quiet a minute and let Father reflect on some of the things that he has been so deeply involved with as well.
I guess just as the role that we are, where we are, or how we ended up there was a situation, whereas when I was first ordained, I had been told, well, going back to my deacon year, the year before ordination, is one of the priests came to our seminary and asked each of us what we would like to do after we were ordained, and my response was, thank God Covington doesn't have a seminary, because I wouldn't want to teach in a seminary. Unbeknownst to me that was why he was there, was he was going to be rector of a new seminary, and he was looking for members of the staff. And as a result of my comment, I guess maybe it was, that I ended up as part of the original establishment of St. Pius X Seminary. I was overextended, most probably as a young priest, being dean of discipline, being procurator, being teaching, and I had 5 jobs. But anyway, that it was. I ended up with a nervous breakdown. But as a result of that, then I began to. As young priests, we always taught. As Father said, he taught in his first year of ordination. Eventually, the doctor says I wasn't cut out for teaching. It wasn't my job, and so the only place that you didn't teach was in the mountains. So, as a result, I was assigned to the mountains, and as that, thank God, I was assigned to Fr Beiting, his associate, and that it was then that we began our relationship and our partnership and our working together for these many years. And as he said in the beginning, he doesn't tell the whole story, but I kept the books to such an extent that I threatened him one time that, I don't know whether he remembers it or not, that I had gone on vacation and told him that here was what the balance of in the bank was $500 and some. And anyway, that his method of finding out how much the balance was, he would call the bank and say how much is left in the account. And they said $25,000. We were building a church at that time, and before I had left on vacation, I had paid the bills for the roof and for the arches and for so on. It was 25, almost $25,000. And so with his answer from the bank, he wrote checks out for $25,000. And when I came home from vacation, the bank calls up and says, you are $25,000 overdrawn. So as a result, I went in with the books, and I says, do you want me to keep the books? If you do want me to keep the books, you can't write a check from now on. Now, I'm an associate, and he's the pastor. Usually an associate doesn't say that to a pastor, but 2 stubborn Dutchmen were all working together, and we understood each other. And so as we worked together well, that he says, okay, you keep the books, I'll never write a check again. And so from that day on, he never wrote a check. But as a result, I did end up in Appalachia as a result of that, and have been there, and this is the love of my life. I have a good mentor. Fr Beiting was my mentor for those first 8 years that we were together, building the churches and establishing the camps, beginning of the Christian Appalachian Project, with the camps and with the programs that we had for trying to meet the needs of the locality. I don't know whether he remembers our discussion at one time. We said, well, agriculture was one of the areas that was in our area that was in need of help. So we began a farm. We began a dairy farm. And we had a question, well, should we hire one man for $10 a day, or the going rate in those days for a man working on the farm was $5 a day, or should we hire 2 men? And so that was quite a decision to make, to the point of establishing the principle of being just and fair. And so it is in that sort of the idea, in other words, of economic development was one of his major elements was a need for the meeting the poverty of the area and helping the people of that time. So that's one of the principles that he has always worked on. And with that, it comes to the sense of words of how Christ fits into all that development, in other words, of those areas. The poverty of education, the poverty of housing, the poverty of roads in those days, the poverty of a medical availability. There were these big areas that were so glaring to the sense of words, as he said, that this is another country or another part of America that few people realized that was there. And so it is that we sort of trying to establish the Christian Appalachian Project to meet those needs and to challenge the structure of the time and to make a change.
I think one of the things that we in regular America fail to realize is the extent of the poverty. I remember one day I had started to work. I had got a trailer in Jackson County, one of our priestless counties, and I was making plans to try to get a church there. And this man came up to me and he says, "I heard tell you're going to start some work." And I said, "Yeah, Oscar, I am." He said, "I'd like to get a job." He said, "I want to get married," but he said, "I ain't got no education, didn't finish the 8th grade." And he said, "I need a job to get married." So I gave him a part-time work and so on. And after a year, he said, "We done had a baby." He said, "Can you come and take a look at it?" And I said, "Sure, give me the direction." Well, he lived in a little shed on the side of a creek. And so I parked as close as I could, about 100 yards away, and walked the rest in a little bridge over the creek. And there he's on the porch waiting for me. So he takes me into this little shed and takes me over in the corner, and he said, "Ain't it a pretty thing?" And I said, "Oscar, it's a beautiful little baby, but why do you have it in this wire cage? A little fine chicken wire surrounding it." He said, "Well, so the rats won't eat on it." And I began to understand something of poverty. And another time I had a family in a little place called Sand Gap, and they lived in an old garage, just one room. And they had a pot-bellied stove in it, no restroom or no water, no nothing. And they had 9 children. And I would help them out at Christmas time, and Father did as well. And so they said, "You got to come back after the first of the year. We're going to have another baby." So I went up there, and sure enough, there was the little baby. And the thing was blue. And I said to him, "You know, the baby is hot. He said, "I know, we keep putting wet rags on it, but it keeps getting hot again." I said, "We got to get it to the hospital," which was about 7 or 8 miles away in Berea. So we loaded it up in the car and took it down there. And they told us that it had pneumonia, and if we had waited 6 hours more, it would have died. And I think that gives you, again, something of how we were attacking poverty. We were going around meeting people. First of all, you had to see how they were living, what was going on. And then you started, "Well, we'll find a job. We'll be able to do this for you. We'll get your children to the hospital." And we have been working on that for ever since. You know, when he mentioned the first job that we had, one of them was a member of our parish there in Lancaster that we had, George Purcell. And I convinced him to come and join in with us in this work. And he moved up then to Jackson County, and he had gotten married. And they said, "We'll be willing to work for you for $50 a week. And if we have a place to live." And we put them on. Another couple came in from over in the Bardstown area, and they wanted to come to Appalachia because they had been Catholic, and they had always heard about missionary work, and they thought this is the way they could do it. Both of those families are still there after more than 50 some years, and dedicating. One has started that dairy farm Father mentioned, another started the sawmill, and others again have been involved in so many other things. And we have never been content with just giving things away. We wanted to find the problem and solve it. If you don't do that, you're not a real answer to Appalachia's problems. So we're still working very hard on the idea of jobs. We're working very hard on religions working together, where no matter what faith you have, we got to be one in Christ, bringing about his kingdom of loving and caring for his people. And the same thing is true with politicians. While we all have our own political affiliation, we work with all the political parties, and not going there and asking them for stuff, but saying, here is our strength, how can we help you bring about this good program? And that has resulted in a tremendous cooperation between the spiritual and the political. And we have been working on religions, on politics. We've been working on the country. Nobody has resulted in getting as many volunteers to come into Appalachia as Father and I have. I think there's well over 70,000 that have come down into our area as a result of our work and our invitation. We have made the rest of America quite aware that there is a challenge to this country, and that is being met by the church and by other men and women of goodwill and of love. So we have been not just simply a spark, but we have started a fire, and where we are getting everybody. When those kids come to camp, we tell them, you got to fall in love with your area. Don't just be dependent. Just don't depend on others to take care of you. You have to care for others. And that has resulted in such a transformation. We do the same thing with Bible schools. You know, we have been having Bible schools for the non-Catholic world, most of them for the non-church world, for all these years. And that has changed the lives of so many. I remember at Easter time, the mayor of the town of Warfield, which is in Martin County, right on the West Virginia border, he asked me to get him some prizes for the kids that were in the Easter egg hunt. And would I come up and lead the ceremony with a prayer? Well, I did. And while I'm standing around after the kids are looking, so many people came up to me and they said, Father, you might not remember, but we were in your Bible school, and we want you to know we now have this job, we now have this family, because of the love we found there in the Bible school with Christ and with others. So these are the kind of things that Father and I have been involved with. It's been creative. It's been more than just the ordinary. It is embracing everyone, no matter what politics they have, what religion they have, what area of the country they live in. But we've been there saying, let's build a new America. Let's build a new Appalachia. And that excitement is beginning to catch on in place to place. And but he has been a vital factor in helping that come about and letting it endure.